Okay, so you want to explain what's going on here?
Alright, this is the Boss DR880.
Mm-hmm.
It is a drum machine, contrary to what this sounds like right now, because I have it running out and into itself, and then using the effects engine on the inside. It has a bunch of amp emulation and effects built in because it's good for processing guitar and bass. You can use that to sculpt all kinds of crazy stuff. Did a lot of bike like that.
That's really gnarly.
Because it's triggering itself and feeding back on itself at the same time. But yeah, aside from using it for all the weirdness, I actually used this for a lot of my guitar music on the Attack 9 label, because it has really solid amp emulation and, you know, emulating Marshall heads and stuff that I don't have for electric guitar. And I've also used it as a little bit of a house music machine. Gonna go back. Let's get out of here. And like I've got a pattern of. You can kind of do drums and bass stuff on it. I don't know what else is on here right now. Yes, cancel, edit. Like that's the drum beat for something in Attack 9.
Yeah, what is... That's not high school guitar, is it?
No. This is also... I think this was Bliss Chord 2. It's a track Millie did. And then... Oh, that's off a Bedroom Carpet. I think so.
Remix!
Right. What is this off of? It sounds really familiar. I think it's Bedroom Carpet. No. This is a track off of Quabreth and Yarrow. It's like a modular Moog feedback drum part behind it. Okay.
There's duck farts. Custom ambient kit. Bunch of pitched bells. Yeah.
So you can use this in a variety of ways.
Yeah, clearly.
I don't even know what that was for. It's probably something I've never used. Funky grunk. That's a preset. that I must have.
That's Funk 41.
Patched in there. Yeah. So let's have a little. Let's. All right. So it's running into itself. I'll just kind of run you guys through how this goes. This is amp emulation. We'll do it on Humbucker. So we got delay on at a quick. Let's turn the delay off. Let's try some reverb. Bring up that gain a little bit.
Yeah. Ooh. Ooh. Interesting. Yeah.
So there's ways to mess with that.
Yeah.
And then let's try it with the noise threshold on and see if it happens. Tremolo feedback in time with the rhythm, because you can, any of these effects that have rates, you can assign them to the just sync to the BPM.
That's really interesting. Just
So then we can turn on a delay rate that's the same and just get it to. It just takes a while because the delay goes through like 1200 milliseconds.
yeah.
So you just have to fucking kill your finger getting there. But then at the end, it's like a BPM setting. You can do BPM divisions like this. Oh, you look at the cable.
Yeah. Your screen's starting to go dark. This isn't gonna work.
No, that's fine.
Rolling.
Okay, so as you can tell by my slight wardrobe change, I'm actually wearing the same shirt as I was in the last one.
Are you seriously?
But I'm wearing different pants and stuff. We're shooting this like, what, months later now? It's been like a couple months.
I don't know. It's been a while.
We're older and wiser. So we're
Sure.
going to try to finish this up, though, so you guys can all sit through the most boring drum machine movie ever made. This is my Boss Dr. Rhythm DR670. I haven't gotten into the 660 yet, which I find is actually the superior model. But I bought this mainly because of that. You can use batteries to run it. And there was a time when I got really fixated on buying a bunch of stuff that you could operate on battery power alone, so that you could stick it into a suitcase like this and just go out on the road, you know, and be kind of off the grid and make some music. And that's still the reason I've got it. That said, it was another one of the machines that I bought kind of shortly right before I moved from South Carolina. And right after I got it, I noticed that the internal battery was low, and it keeps kind of flashing and warning me. But the downside of the internal battery being low is it seems to refuse to save any of my custom kits. So I've just never really bothered with it. I have actually replaced the internal battery on my 660, and I imagine this has got to be pretty much the same. So once I do that, I'm sure I'll get a lot more mileage out of this. This may even, in fact, be a good substitution for if I'm going out to play live and I don't want to bring my 660. This is battery operated and pretty much the same machine. It's a lot uglier. I really hate the silver. It's just like, it looks more like the 880 that came after.
It looks very much like generic drum machine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you were wondering what it sounded like, I can't seem to dial out a decent bass sound, but I got this going. As you can tell, it sounds really great.
You had something better going than that.
Yeah.
What? When did that happen?
I don't know.
Oh shit! Depeche Mode.
Yeah. You wanna? Well, he wanted to show you the world in his eyes, but right now we're gonna show you the drum machine in his ears.
Yep.
So.
Yep.
Anyway, so
try walking in my shoes.
So this is all a very standard, digital drum machine. Not a whole lot of stuff about it. It's mostly good if you want to have something to get under the hood and build your custom kits, build some interesting patterns. Obviously, it's got drum and bass stuff going. If anything, it seems like it's a more shrunk down in features version of the DR880, which is just a lot more dense in terms of outputs and programmability, and it's got internal amp emulation and stuff and effects you can apply. I don't know that this has a whole lot of that kind of stuff. I think this is just a lot more utility. So that's that. That's the DR670.
Cool. Alrighty, there we are.
Okay. This is the Boss Dr. Rhythm DR550 Mark II. You're starting to notice I have a lot of Dr. Rhythm machines. This thing is cool. It's basically like a really similar but earlier build version of the 660. Once again, like, I really love the 660. I bought this because it was super dirt cheap. I can't remember where or when I got it, but I got it a long time ago. It functions on 6AA's as well, which is cool. I actually took it with me to a trip to Disney World and just used it. The last thing I used this on, as far as records are concerned, was the Mirai song single / album by Coppice Halifax. It's it actually packs quite a bit of punch if you get in under the hood and get into the kit customization and stuff. Let me see if I can. So, anyway, you heard a bunch of my custom stuff in the beginning, and then we got into, like, the salsa section, apparently. But, this thing is pretty stripped back. It only has MIDI input, not MIDI out. So it has to be at the very end of whatever MIDI chain it's in, which isn't usually a problem, but, yeah. I did use this also in some Deep Earth stuff in the first year of the Deep Earth series. And what else did I use this on? There was something. I think it was actually just those two things. Yeah. But it's mostly just, again, like a battery operatable version of the 660. And I think the reason I went for the 670 is because this thing is a lot more limiting. And I wanted something with a little bit more customization like the 670 has. So yeah, but it's just another Rappler and not a whole lot else to tell. But that's what's cool about it. So there you go. You recording?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. This is the Boss Dr. Groove DR202. I guess it's not a Dr. Rhythm, it's a Dr. Groove. I got this for like $40 fucking. Again, battery operatable, Rompler digital. It does have MIDI in and out. It's only got, oddly enough, an 1/8 inch output as well as RCA, kind of implying that this is better suited as like a companion to like a turntable DJ setup. And you can certainly hear that in the way it sounds. I mean, even the style groups are like jungle, drum and bass, techno, house, acid jazz, hip-hop, 1 through 3. So, but it's pretty rad because it's all mapped out really easily here. If you want to get into some pretty nasty stuff, you've got a cutoff and resonance here, filter right on the front, you know, which is super not heard of in like a drum machine most of the time. Kind of, again, implying this is more of a DJ tool. And then you got a decay cut here, which is cool. You can apply these as well to individual instruments in this pattern or the whole thing globally. You can boost the low end.
That thing sounds fucking great. Why have we not used that on a Kerr thing yet? Like, that sounds awesome to me. There's the sequel to Syrup right there, man.
And then there's reverb and delay. Pretty nice.
Oh, I gotta play with this sometime.
And then a flanger. And of course, these two effects knobs, you can change their parameters and what's on them. I think this can actually be a chorus. This can be different types of reverbs and delays. So there's that. Then you can also... Yeah, as you can tell, though, when I got this, it's in really bad shape. These have all been used so much that basically these pads no longer trigger. So I had to get creative building kits and basically make this like bass kick hi-hat, and because the triggering is so bad. In fact, it might even just be better off because the connections under these have all been worn down so bad.
Yeah.
That's why it was $40 basically. But you could just use MIDI in and like use the QY or something to trigger all these externally, and it would be fine. But yeah, like
I wonder how much they go for.
A decent bit.
Really?
They're still popular.
Yeah? Man. Now hold on a second.
Yep.
Am I hearing like a faux vinyl crackle sound?
It's the samples.
Man. That just sounds so warm and good. Oh man. Well, damn. I'm gonna have to remember. What is that? DR202. I'm gonna remember what that is, dude. I'll put that in my wish list.
Let's see if I can find my. I know I've got some custom stuff on here. Yeah, this is something for Deep Earth. Fake 909 kit. I can't remember how I had to map it out, but let's see. Oh yeah, this is also... I made a cowbell. This is another custom kit.
Come on! Come on! Come on! Come on, come on, come on, come on! Come on!
There's another custom kit.
I like that. Dude, I'm telling you, Syrup 2.
See, there's some stuff on this that I haven't done anything with yet.
I like that machine.
Alright, so what else we got on here? Is there a user? There we go. Anyway. Stop! Stop! It's not working.
The button just doesn't want to trigger.
Yeah, that's why this thing is so cheap, but the other cool thing about it too is I know you can do recording, like motion recording on this.
Yeah.
But it's just not working.
Yeah.
So, as you can tell, it needs some serious cleanup under this thing. Like, whoever had it before me, the contacts are just completely fucked on these pads. So, but yeah, cool machine.
Yeah.
When you work it the right way.
Very cool.
DR202. Okay. Next up is this oddity, the Memphis Blue Beat, which, as I understand it, is kind of the same kind of thing as there's like a Univox pedal out there that does the same thing. It's fully analog. It is a battery operatable drum machine. You have to unscrew the whole thing to get the battery in and out, but it does have a power supply option. It's very basic. It only has 8 preset settings, and you get to change the tempo and the volume, and that's it. And it's a start-stop. Kind of resembles drum machines that are built into like rhythm accompaniments and organs and stuff. I think this was marketed at like guitar players for rehearsal type stuff. You know, you could hit it on and off with your foot. It's very simple, but it's got a really nice sound to it, and you can work it into different stuff. I've used it all over Deep Earth, especially once you run this thing through like a low pass filter and some delays. You can do all kinds of stuff with it. The only downside is that there's zero synchronization, anything, so it's basically do it by hand and by ear if you're going to use it with anything else, or just use it as like a solo kind of thing along with something tonal. So there's not a lot to the Blue Beat, but I really like the sound of it, and it's probably the most obscure drum machine I've got in my collection. I don't even remember where I first found out about it or how much I paid for it. I don't imagine it was much. But, you know, who doesn't want to have something called a blue beat in their studio? So...
It does have a nice, like, that snare tone is really nice.
Yeah, well, I mean, it almost sounds like some of the stuff on, like, Pansonic records, like, once you get the...
Yeah, the hat has a lot of sizzle. Good snappy snare. Yeah, you could cut that all up. That's yeah.
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 So, it's good. I have plans to just sample all the individual hits as best I can, and then just run them into the Volca sample up there.
Yeah, it'd be cool.
Then we could map it out and do different stuff with it. But for now, it is what it is. And I think the last thing I used it on was the Deep Earth release Ebla, which was just this and the Korg MS-20 and the Korg DS-10. And that was like the most like throbbing gristle thing I've done in ages. You were sitting here when I did.
Yes, I was.
It was super loud. So, that's the Blue Beat. Next one up. Okay. This is the Korg Dynamic Digital Drums 5. I actually have 2 of these. I got them for the price of 1 from somebody. I don't think I've ever really used them to their fullest ability. They have 2 card slots for different kits. I don't have any of the cards. They're pretty standard in terms of outputs and things like that, but there's also, interestingly enough, a line input that I've never really used. I don't really know how that supposedly plays in. I don't think it's got a whole lot of through stuff. It's a really basic digital drum machine. I think it's from the 80s. It looks like it's from the 80s. This sounds like...
Yep.
That sounds like the 80s.
So. Night Court jams.
The claps are awesome. Nice meaty kick.
Yeah.
You know, and then you got pretty terrible toms. Horrible crash. Decent ride. Back to Night Court.
Awesome slap bass.
But no, it's the DDD-1 is like the big flagship of this series of drum machine. I've been wanting a DDD-1 for a long time. Those, I think, actually have some like very small sampling capabilities on top of all of what you see here, and they take cards. And also the DD1 has a ton of individual outputs for all the drums, which is great. These do not.
That's very weird.
And I've been wanting a DDD1 for a while. They're also like white and like red, and they look a lot cooler than this. Another weird and cool thing about this drum machine that I've never seen on any other drum machines is this. You take... Let me see how to do this. Let's see. Ah, there it is. You lift these up, and you take the whole panel off. This is the preset mode panel. And if you want to use different settings, I have on the second one back here. I can show you. This is the programmable mode panel.
Weird.
And so in this way, the drum machine was designed to be able to have like double the amount of menu settings with assignable buttons and everything, but not a whole lot of stuff, you know, written on the real estate front end of the machine. So now we're in programmable mode, and all this same stuff works the same way. It's just a matter of knowing which sequence to use the buttons and so on.
Very weird.
Yeah, so that's sort of why it's cool to have 2 of them in their own way. I did use this a lot on Deep Earth Year 2. I want to say Morocco is basically just this and a couple synths and the resonator and the quadriverb. I think maybe it's even just this and the resonator and the quadriverb. There may be some other stuff too, though. I can't remember. But it's drum sound-wise, you know, obviously it sounds kind of similar to a lot of, you know, kind of 80s digital drum machine stuff. I think you've got some basic settings you can change. You can change the panning, you can change the tuning of the you know, like the pitch a little bit. You can change the decay, which is usually pretty good to cut that shorter. But the fun thing to do on this is a trick you can do on a lot of drum machines, but it sounds particularly cool on this. Is you can turn on the quantization all the way up to one, you know, like 30-second notes basically, and then while you're playing, you know, live programming a beat in, you hit the flam and the roll buttons, and it cuts it and does all this really interesting, like, transitional, almost like glitchy drum machine stuff, because it's like hitting the flam in a, like, a programmed input way.
Yeah.
And it sounds better on some drum machines than others. This, I really like the sound of it, because you can especially do that with the hats and get some really, like, Aphex-y or Mike Paradinas sound. I mean, I'm pretty sure Paradinas used one of these, or at the very least, he probably had the DDD-1, knowing his stuff. But yeah, it's definitely got that kind of a vibe. Like, it'd be very easy to imagine one of these on something like Bluff Limbo or something like that, you know. Especially with, you know... Yeah. Mike Paradinas would love that shit.
Oh, I know.
All right, so DDD5s, there you go. All right, this is, as I have talked about it quite a bit, the Boss Dr. Rhythm DR660. This is one of my favorite drum machines. It was the second one I ever got, and it was given to me, actually, for free by Joe Burke, who you may otherwise know as Obfusc. He was cleaning out his studio in a move and knew I was getting into hardware as he was kind of getting out of it, and just decided to pass it on in a gesture of goodwill. And so, yeah, I used it so much on so many things that the internal battery died and I had to replace it, and now it's been given a new lease on life. But in losing the old battery, I lost all my old patterns and kits and everything. But I had almost all of the first year Deep Earth. There were custom kits on here made using just pitched 808 cowbell sounds, which is a big fascination of mine. We're not getting all the outputs for some reason, but we should be. But it's probably because it's running through the ring mod right now and the stereo is not working the right way. But yeah, so there's a lot of possibility on this because it is a Rompler, and because it was my first, I got really deep into like the sound design side of things. It's got reverb and chorus, which can be reassigned as delays or flange as well, and you got dedicated stuff there. There's something. Okay, this is a custom kit. That's pretty nasty. Let's hear the chorus. Reverb. Let's turn the chorus down. Pretty standard. It sounds good though. It sounds really good. I actually always kind of wished you could run something through it to use the reverb, because I thought the reverb was pretty solid on a lot of different things. Here's a custom pattern. I don't know if this is the right kit. And I've been running this lately through my Moog ring modulator. You can get some nasty stuff out of this. We've used that. let's go back to patterns and play around with some stuff like that. There's another one. It's a bit mental. That was Run From. The first one was 52 Girls. This one's Jordake. Somebody's been listening to Demdike Stare.
Oh, say.
So, it's pretty versatile.
Hashasheen chant, too.
Yeah.
See that fucking Rangda with her nails. She's coming at you, too. For anybody who doesn't know what I'm talking about, please direct yourself to YouTube and look up the Demdike Stare video for Hashasheen chant. Everything will become very clear to you.
These sound particularly nasty through the ring mod. Really good for nasty dub techno stuff. I've used this particular sound on some of the live streams. White Pillar 10. A lot of the White Pillar stuff, in fact, has been very... But, what's... Anyway, this is an awesome drum machine. It's very simple. To me, it's more awesome than it is probably to most because I know it so damn well. It's like fits me like a glove. A little bit of cultural fascination. This exact machine is where Tom Jenkinson got the name Square Pusher. It was these squares. And he...
Those are the squares he was pushing, people.
Yeah, they all say Tom.
Hey.
No, the... And the other cool thing about it is I know from interviews with him that he actually used this and the internal sequencer for the drum patterns as a way to externally sequence his synthesizer melodies and stuff back in the day. So it's a pretty convoluted way of working, but you can set that up so that like this is a musical scale going out of the MIDI out. And that was what he was doing. So he used it as a little sequencer in a drum machine all at one time. And yeah, and I'm pretty sure that would have been like Feed Me Weird Things era. Maybe even Chaos AD. But anyway, yeah, awesome little machine. Use it all the time. And it can sound very mean when it wants to. Alright, next up is my newest acquisition in the drum machine department. The Teenage Electronics P012 Pocket Operator Drum Machine. This thing is obviously just a little digital drum machine. It runs on, right now, 2 rechargeable AAA batteries. It does not have a whole lot of connective capabilities as far as synchronization goes. It's just click in, click out, kind of like the Volcas, which is what it's slaved off of right now. And it sounds nasty like this. And you can do all kinds of fun effects stuff with it, like so it's really versatile. It's very simple. You can store up to 16 patterns. They are all 16 steps. And and you can tune all the individual drums and stuff. It has this really nifty LED thing that reminds me of the old Tiger video game, you know, handhelds. And it's got a little guy beating a drum next to, you know, a sewing machine. All their stuff is very kitschy. It's also got a working alarm clock on it that you can set. And there's cases you can get to hold it, kind of to protect it a bit more. It does look more fragile than it actually is. It's actually built really sturdy. I've been kind of hesitant to pick them up, and my wife got me this one for my birthday this year. They're a pretty cheap price point. I think they're maybe like $80 a piece. And they really pack a punch given what you have. So, yeah, you would not expect to get that sound out of this machine, you know. Making acid on it a little bit. You've got a song already. Just that plus some Volca keys in the background, right? It's very easy to get, like, I care because you do nastiness out of this, you know, like that nasty distorted filter drum stuff. So this is a really, really powerful little thing, and it's very fun to improvise on, obviously. So I think I'm probably going to get a couple more of them. I'd like to get a case for this. So
the new metal series, the I think 32, 33, something like that. Mm-hmm. Those all are really cool, and they all have sampling capabilities. So
all right, had a little fun with some delay. Lo-fi delay. All right. Next. Okay. Alright, so Yamaha RY20 Rhythm Programmer, another digital drum machine that I'm very fond of. I've used the shit out of this on the Deep Earth series. It's got tons of custom kits. It's got tons of possibility as far as sculpting the sounds that are in it. Huge range, like 2 octaves up and down in pitch alteration on all the sounds. There's a bunch of musical sounds in there, like bass sounds and stuff, as well as drum sounds. It also has 4 dedicated track select and mute buttons, which are great. So if you've got like a drum pattern going, like I can try to find one here. Let's mute the delay. Alright, so we got this going, and we want to mute the bass drum. Well, obviously that's not a bass drum, because as you see, it says others. A lot of percussion tom sounds and things are all classed as others, and I've used tom sounds to make bass kicks, so that's what mutes all of that. But you can mute the hi-hats and the snares. Let's see what's next. Got an internal effect. That's obviously a delay and reverb. You can assign that. But there's some pretty mean stuff on this. Bird Maker stuff. What's up, Pretty Hate Machine?
Yeah.
Go through some of my custom kits. Sounds a little Audiker, early Audiker. Let's see. Oh, it's not playing any of the weird. Let's see. A lot of deep earth on this. There's a lot of I don't know what some of this is. So anyway, I got this drum machine after Mr. Eric Kowalski, aka Casino vs. Japan, recommended it to me. He told me that this was still in his setup after all the years he'd been producing, and it was there since the very beginning, basically. He said it was what he used on the early shit, like Go Hawaii and all that. And, of course, I've never been able to replicate any of his actual drum sounds, and he may well have been lying to me. But in any case, it's an awesome drum machine. I'm very happy with it, and it was not expensive. I think I paid $120 or less for it. But right now in the rig, it's sitting here. One bad thing about this machine is it does not like to cooperate with MIDI in the same way as the DR660 and stuff. A lot of those other machines I've got that I love are very easy on the MIDI front. This is just, I don't know, there's something about it that makes it be like I'm the master in the MIDI chain kind of thing. So right now it is principally used to send into the MS-20 as an audio trigger, so that I can have chords coming out of the MS-20 that are in MIDI time, so to speak, with all the other stuff that's running off the MIDI clock, without a whole lot of other interference and stuff. So it's kind of relegated to that right now, but obviously it's still running into the mixer all by itself too. So it just depends on what I'm working on, but it's kind of a good all-purpose thing, and I've used it probably almost as much as the 660 as far as things like deep earth are concerned. It's very good, like if you're going to sit down and have one drum machine and something else, it's very good to be the only drum machine. So that's the RY20. Alright, this is the last one, and I've saved my favorite for last. This is the Korg Electribe ER1 drum machine. It's completely digital, but it would not sound that way, you know. to some people. People either love or hate this machine. This was my first drum machine. I got it in a trade for mastering work from David Tagg, and I can't remember where he got it from. But what's amazing about this unit is you see here, it's all basically an oscillator with two different waveforms and then modifiers for the LFO. And basically that's the originator of every sound you hear coming out of this. There's not a sound library, it's not samples, it's all just literally synthesis. You're basically starting with a very basic, like a sine tone waveform or a triangle wave, and gating it and shaping it into bass kicks and snares and bass tones and hi-hats and everything else. It's got a built-in delay that can be set to tempo or not. It also has a ring mod that's kind of not really a ring mod that you can place over different sets. It's like an on-off, different sets of the drums in the kit that you make. And depending on how you make this sound, this can actually act subtractively. It can actually cancel out audio entirely. So it's a cool way to like kind of drop things in and out, not necessarily ring mod them. In fact, that's why it's not really ring modulation. I've read online people say it's closer to cross modulation, which is something that's reappeared on the Korg Minilog synthesizer. And I don't exactly know the ins and outs of that. You'll also notice the trigger keys here are all kind of breaking apart because I have studio cats every now and then that like to claw themselves on my, on the plastic bits. This thing's extremely beat up, and right now it's out of commission because this thing, the power supply port, is so wiggly that it resets the machine constantly. You can't even use it even if you have such a gentle hand, which is really a tragedy. I have been trying to find somebody who could do the soldering work for me to just refix that, basically, so that I can use it, because I feel like I got gorilla hands and I'm too afraid to open it up. I feel like I'm going to melt something and then it'll really be fucked. But that's why I haven't used it in a long time. I think the last thing I actually used this on was the Bike EP that just came out at Recycled Plastics, Vliss. Which is all just this, basically, with some stuff. It's also cool in that it has two audio inputs, which are useful for, you can run anything, like, traditionally speaking, you'd run like, you turn on the radio and run AM radio static into this, and then you can gate it and pattern it out like any other drum part. You can put human speech in it. You can run any signal from anything into that. If you've got like a droning tone coming off of another machine or a keyboard, and you can make a little tremolo note here, and of course that anything in these inputs can be processed by the delays and the ring mods as well, which is interesting. And also there's motion sequencing, which is something that's been more prevalent on all the Korg Volca stuff and the Minilog and all that. But as far as I'm aware, the Electribe series of this machine and the others like it were the first that Korg did the motion sequencing thing with, where basically you hit the motion sequence record button and any little flick of the wrist on the knob is recorded and repeated without you having to do that manually again. So you can imagine the possibilities here of having a pretty standard drum loop going and messing with delay flashes and LFO changes and stuff, and pretty soon you've got like Audiker coming out of this thing. One of the only people I've ever seen, like, as far as a famous musician person who champions this machine as much as I have, has actually been Chris Carter from Throbbing Gristle and his other things. He loves this machine. He wrote a really long, great review of it when it came out, and basically said what I've always said, which is that in the right hands this will be an amazing instrument, but most people who are going to go to a drum machine for it to act like a drum machine are going to be disappointed by this, and that's where you hear a lot of people talk crap about it. But it's more of a synthesist's machine. It's not even really a drum machine if you think about it in that respect, because of the sound wave thing and the sculpting. You can make, I've made very tonal things on this. I've made bass lines on this. I've made all kinds of stuff. It's just really as far as your imagination will let you go, because it's really, really fantastically versatile. And yeah, also the inputs are cool, as you might imagine, to run the machine into itself. You've got your left and right outputs here and a headphone out. You take that headphone out and run it into one of the audio inputs, And you've got your amp here to shape, as well as a low boost knob, which acts kind of like a filter sweep, and that sculpts the tone of the feedback or how loud it is, and then you map that out. You motion sequence the tone of the feedback movement here, and you've got like feedback acid. You know, like there's all kinds of crazy shit you can get into with this that is not going to sound normal drum machine. You know, and it's all over my stuff. It's all over all my records. Like Analog Botany series was almost completely this machine in terms of the rhythms. Just tons and tons and tons of things I've recorded with this. I just can't say enough about it. It's all over Milieu Records. It's all over everything.
Well, a glowing endorsement from Chris Carter is kind of like what more needs to be said.
Right. It's and that's why I've even considered just buying a second one.
Yeah.
Because even when I get this fixed, it's like having two of them would almost be even better, because then you could really have a bunch of crazy shit without resorting to the overdubs. Yeah. They did make these slightly sturdier in the Mark II versions. This is a Mark I. I've never played with a Mark II. I've heard that the cross modulation is slightly different. The delay sounds slightly different. But for the most part, it's the same machine. The only problem with the Mark II versions, if you ever look them up, they've got like really shitty fonts, and it looks a lot more plastic. Like this at least has, you know, like Times New Roman or something on it, and it looks just a little bit more like a machine or a synthesizer or something.
I think I've seen pictures of it, and doesn't it look like... looks real, like trying to be cool guy 90s. Like,
it's like if you italicized the Impact font.
Right. Yeah, woo! Sure, techno drum box.
And I would buy it in a second if it doesn't matter what it looks like really. Yeah. But yeah, so I miss this thing very badly. So if any of you watching this or know anyone or you yourselves do repairs, I'm willing to trade music, mastering work, whatever you want, to safely get this thing back into working order again. I've reached out to people on Facebook and nobody seems to write me back. So I don't know if people are just lazy or unwilling or what, but I'd even be willing to pay somebody at this point. I don't even need to barter about it, but it's one of those things that I don't want to entrust to some guy at Guitar Center or something.
Yeah.
So if you know anybody or know where to send things like this for repairs that aren't going to cost me more than it costs to just buy a new one, then let me know. And please don't bother telling me that I should just fix it myself, because I'm too damn afraid to do that. I'm not talented enough, I'm not patient enough, and really, practically speaking, I don't have the time to open this thing up and do that. So yeah, so that's all my drum machines. I hope you guys have enjoyed seeing what all there is to see. There's not a lot more to tell other than, everything that you see is being used in like a myriad of ways in the studio all the time. Everything's able to do like 8 different things most of the time. I'm very adept at kitchen sinking this whole thing. So that is what they're all good for. Some of them more useful than others. Some of them more explored than others. But I use pretty much everything I've got, and I'm always finding new ways to apply it in conjunction with all this stuff and the effects boxes that I'm getting and stuff like that. So I hope you liked it. Hopefully we'll come back sooner rather than later and do the synthesizer video, the effects boxes video, and the other stuff video, like instruments and mixers and all kinds of other things, sequencers, and, there's all kinds of shit in here that we could talk about. So thank you for tuning in. See you later.